Schwartz and that?
Oh, no, that's Colby Spath.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't know until he came a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
We got, so he's always on Facebook and stuff.
Oh.
All right, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Our first order of business is to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? Motion passes. Next, we will take up the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless otherwise noted.
Madam President, I would like to move that we pull the minutes off the consent agenda for a correction to be made and readdress next week.
Second.
And otherwise to approve the agenda?
Right.
Okay. And
That
second
too.
by Commissioner Hanson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? Motion passes. All right, we will move to the regular agenda. The first item is the FY19 second quarter budget adjustments, request for approval. And we'll start with the staff presentation.
Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners. For the record, Christine Tandler, Budget Coordinator. I'm here to present a decision briefing on the second budget adjustments for fiscal year 2019. We currently have an approved budget of an approved revenue budget of $134.4 million. We're proposing to go up about $1.4 million. Significant amount of that, as presented, is the impact fee revenue. We've had several buildings downtown that have paid impact fees that we're anticipating them, as well as properties out at 10 Mile in the freeway. We're anticipating to receive those in FY19. On the operational adjustment, there is a slight decrease there. We had originally had some traffic camera software in the budget that we're not going to need with the approval of the sole source contract. Our capital budget is decreasing just about $2 million. Some of those major ones are, sorry about that. So in the professional services, we do have a $900,000 decrease related to the CSHQA contract for the headquarters building design. So that is the large decrease there. In right-of-way, we have Lake Hazel 5 Mile project, which was moved in the integrated 5-year work plan to future years. Excuse me. A decrease of $500,000 there, as well as 10 Mile Ustick to McMillan. We reduced the right-of-way budget to accommodate, or to true it up to what offers were actually out. We have a proposed capital budget of $71.2 million. Again, this is an expense summary showing operational capital commuter ride. We do have $1.7 million in rescheduled projects that's due to schedule changes for various projects. Those projects were in the packet that was posted online. We have a proposed expenditure budget of $133.8. Staff recommends approval of the FY19 second budget adjustments as outlined in the staff report. I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Are there questions or
Madam
comments?
President,
Commissioner Baker?
I don't know if you can answer this, Christine, but on the previous slide that showed the right-of-way, and you mentioned that we're not going to spend, what, $500,000 on right-of-way this year because it's going to be moved out into out years, the actual construction, so the right-of-way follows through with that. Well, I guess my question is, land doesn't get any cheaper as time goes by. So what might cost $500,000 this year might cost $550 next year, or $600 or $700,000. So why is it in our interest to defer that? And I guess the lawyer will tell us why.
Madam President, Steve Price, ACHD General Counsel, for the record. Commissioner Baker, the one reason we can't acquire that right away now is we don't have the design complete.
Okay.
All right, other questions or comments on this item? Do we have any comments from the audience? Anyone who'd like to talk about this? No? Okay.
Well, Madam President,
I got a demotion.
yeah. Madam President, I move approval of the fiscal year 19 second budget adjustment.
Second?
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right, the next item is a public hearing on Resolution 2284, declaring real property to be surplus and directing sale of the surplus property. So I will open the public hearing and we'll begin with a staff presentation.
Madam President, Commissioners, for the record, my name is Lori Baird. I am from the Real Estate Department. Today is the time, date, and place that was advertised in the Idaho Statesman that we would hold a public hearing to allow anyone to come forward to testify as why we should not sell this property. The property is located at 5714 West Fairview Avenue. It was originally purchased to run our commuter ride division out of, and now that they're here at the main office, we no longer need that property. This is where the property is located. It was appraised at $340,000. Before we can move forward to sell or exchange this property, we're required to hold this public hearing where anyone can come forward to testify why the sale should not be made. If nobody comes forward to testify and the commission adopts the resolution, we would then be required to first offer it to any adjoining property owners. If there are not any offers, then we would move forward and sell it to the public. Staff would recommend that we sell it by a solicited bid auction, the minimum price not being less than their appraised value. The highest bidder would be required to pay 10% down the day of auction and be required to close within 90 days. Staff recommends that Commission adopt the resolution number 2284 and find the property to be surplus property and to establish the procedures of the sale.
Okay, are there questions or comments? Yes,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldberg.
This sealed bid auction, in my mind, I'm a little confused in this climate where we have rapidly appreciating real estate values, why we don't make it more public.
We have that option.
I'm just thinking that if we know it's worth 340, there are situations where we can put it up for public auction with the successful buyer paying whatever the auction price is, plus the commission. And so even at the very worst case scenario, we still wouldn't wind up with less than the appraised value.
Mr. Price, would you like to address that question?
Madam President, Commissioner Steve Price again, for the record, we most certainly can do an open auction. That's one of the tools. We've done this in the past, but if the commission, that's your desire to go forward with a public auction on the property, we're happy to do that.
I just think of all the times that I've either heard personally or read in the last couple of years, people say, I sold my house in 2 days. And I look at them and say, you didn't ask enough. And wondering if maybe this isn't kind of a corollary to that.
Again, Commissioner Goldthorpe, that's most certainly, if that's your direction, we'll proceed in that fashion.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions or comments? No? All right, this is a public hearing, so I will open it up to comments, testimony from the audience, if anyone would like to comment. Look like we had anybody signed up. Oh,
I did sign up, thank you.
please state your name and
My
address.
name is
for the
Christopher
record.
Colby Spath. I live at 1503 North 11th Street in Boise. I was here a couple weeks ago talking to you, Commission, about the 11th Street Bikeway and about why it was halved from its original.
Oh, this is just about.
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
Commuter ride item.
Okay, sorry.
We'll get to
I'll
your
come
other
back to
item
you.
at public comment. All right. Is there anybody that would like to talk about the surplus property issue? No? Hearing none, is there any further questions for staff? All right, well, I'm gonna let you know up front that I am not in favor of, oh, okay, Steve's telling me close the public hearing first. Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. I am not in favor of selling this building. I think it was a mistake to move commuter ride into this building because we now have a lot of parking taken up with the excess vans. And the property on Fairview was actually the perfect place to house commuter ride and have plenty of room for those vans. We're paying a lot of money to rent space because we didn't have enough capacity in this building, so I don't think it's in the public's best interest to get rid of a building that we can utilize for a good purpose, but that's just my opinion. All right, so we've closed the public hearing. Commission, this item is before you for action.
Madam President, I would move that we adopt the resolution 2284 with directing the surplus property of the old commuter ride building to be sold, but that it be done at public auction with a reserve bid equal to the appraised amount and with the successful buyer paying all costs.
Is there a second? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? Nay. Motion passes 4-1. All right, that brings us to our public communications portion of the agenda. So I think we have one person who would like to address the commission on an item. If you would, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Christopher Colby Spath. I live at 1503 North 11th Street. I'm here testifying on behalf of myself and not a business or occupation. I was here a couple weeks ago talking about the 11th Street Bikeway and how it was mysteriously halved in size. I asked the question then, and I asked the question today, why? I was promised some answers. I never got those answers. In lieu of those answers, I did a records request of all the raw data from the original survey that was released back in 2019. There was this survey, one of those map surveys, and there was, I believe, 538 responses on that survey about the 11th Street Bikeway. And on the map-based portion of it, where you go and you point out a place on the map and you ask a question or make a comment, there's about 240 comments. Over 100 of those comments were about the Front Myrtle Pioneer Pathway intersection. People saying, this is dangerous, can we improve that? That portion of the bikeway is no longer a part of it. So I'm back here today to ask again, why this bikeway, which originally was scoped out to be ridges to rivers, camels back to the greenbelt, was somehow mysteriously this spring halved in size. I asked for answers then. People told me they'd give me answers. It's more about the public getting answers though, because I know that if you go through this raw data, you see so many comments, especially in the map portion of that lower half of that bikeway. Can we do this? Can we do that? There's a lot of comments about Front and Hayes, which are being addressed. A lot of comments about Boise High, which are being addressed. A lot of comments about the YMCA block, which are being addressed. But all the comments and all the concerns about the lower half of that bikeway just evaporated into thin air in the last month or two. I know that although I'm not a member of the Bike Advisory Committee, I go to those meetings a lot. I know the Bike Advisory Committee sent a letter that eventually reached the commission, stating their support to return to the original scope. I have a sneaking suspicion in my brain that Kittleson already has made plans for the lower half. I'd probably bet $20 on it that there's plans and maps out there for the lower half. So can we just talk about it or think about returning to the original scope and making this a complete bikeway like it was talked about by ACHD and the press back in December? Thank you very much. Any questions?
Questions, comments? No?
I know I'm tilting at windmills, but I'm gonna do what I can.
Well, I'm disappointed to hear that you didn't get the answers that you were looking for, or,
I don't think anybody knows why.
Okay.
It seems like some kind of like, there was a plan and then the plan got changed or got halved, and all reference to the original plan disappeared from ACH websites, disappeared from everywhere. The only way you can find any reference to this original plan is to go back and look at KTVB, go look at News, Boise Dev, and see the original plan. You can go back and look at this, Google this. You can see an ACHD person on air being interviewed talking about this.
Madam President.
yes.
I echo Commissioner Arnold, or President Arnold's regret that you haven't been replied to. I do know that the committee with their outreach, and Brooke Green, she's been talking to people about that and answering those questions. So I would have to think perhaps it was just a little bit of a communication breakdown.
You know, I got a response from Brooke,
Okay.
and the response was, and I will read the response right now out loud, if I can. She said, "Thank you for participation last night," which was about and I sent this as a tellus when I first saw this, and I also asked him to comment. "Thank you for participation last night, and thank you for your email. We received several emails regarding the 11th Street bikeway boundaries and recognize people's desire to expand the study area. But we're not expanding the study area. The original study area was the entire thing. There's no expansion of something that's already been done. The original survey, the original plans were about the entirety, ridge to river, Camel's Back to River Street. That was the original plan. If those original plans hadn't been disappeared from the websites and from information, you would see that.
Well, we will certainly follow up on your concerns and make sure that you get an appropriate explanation. But I do think
I don't want
Mr. Wallace.
I don't want an explanation for me. I want an explanation for the 500 or 600 people that commented on the original survey, hundreds of which commented upon an area of this bikeway that's disappeared without any explanation. I think those hundreds of people that commented should receive an explanation as well. It's not about me.
And perhaps some of those people have received an answer. We can't speak to that, but we can certainly follow up and make sure that you get a response. And Madam President, I think Mr. Wallace might have something
Yes,
to add.
Mr. Wallace, did you have a comment?
Madam President, Dave Wallace, Deputy Director of Plans and Projects, recognize that there are some bits of communication that have not been completed. We also know that there was a FOIA request which was honored for Mr. Spath. Thank you very much. We have in fact responded to a number of citizens. It is not really a matter of abandoning the south half of this. We took the decision to build the more undeveloped part of the bikeway down to the YMCA because even the city of Boise recognizes that there are adequate bicycle lane facilities from State Street all the way to Front. We also recognize that this project is not going to be built next year. There is time and there are circumstances. We certainly have heard from the public that we'll take the opportunity to take a good look at it. There are a couple of things that we could do to improve things south of State Street, but right now, again, we are planning to make sure that the complete part and the difficult bit, which goes by the high school, is completed when we plan to do that.
Okay. Well, perhaps you could provide us with some information on what the available facilities are south of State Street. And perhaps you and Ms. Green could have a discussion with him to answer
Madam
any
President,
further
we'll do.
questions he has.
We will do.
Great, thank you
And
very
Madam
much.
President, we may even want to look to posting something perhaps on the website, an addendum or something about the change from the original plan. So we'll follow up
Yeah.
on it. Well, hopefully you'll get the
Like
answers that
like
you're
I said a
looking
few
for.
weeks ago, if I have no problem, if the reason is money, I have no problem with that. If the reason is other things, I have no problem with that. And I would differ with Mr. Wallace as saying that the top half is the more difficult half. Actually, the bottom half is the more difficult half, because the bottom half is where you have to deal with ITD roads, had to deal with the Pioneer Crossing. We've been talking about connecting the Pioneer Crossing for 3 years now. I know that there's other organizations that have allocated a lot of money towards developing that intersection. If the money's on the table, if the designs are already there, that's the difficult part. I don't think I understand Boise High is a very difficult thing. It has been since 1989, I believe, when that road was first turned over to Boise High. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to address the commission today? Yes, please come up and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Marisa Keith. I'm at 3279 South Cloverdale Road. I'm with the Southwest Ada County Alliance Neighborhood Association. A few weeks ago, a little boy was hit and killed while riding his bike within the SWACA boundaries, and just a half a mile from my house. And on social media, there continues to be blame put on the driver, the little boy, his family, ACHD, the city and county. Some of the things I've read is, was the driver on his cell phone? Was he speeding? Was he wearing a helmet? Why were the children in the road? Why would their parents let their children ride their bikes on that road? But the reality is that even with the best roads and sidewalks and perfect driving habits, obedient children and bike helmets, some accidents will happen and some will still be fatal. However, at this location, on this arterial, like so many other arterials in Southwest Boise, the most basic of pedestrian and bike safety facilities is missing. I don't blame ACHD for that. I don't blame Boise City or Ada County, but I do blame the system that has allowed urban type densities to be built up, partnered with the traffic that goes with it, before even the most basic of road safety measures are in place. SWACA is also addressing this with the city and Ada County, but for ACHD, in looking over the draft integrated 5-year work plan, I noticed that the timelines for road improvements in Southwest Boise have been pushed back yet again. I assume it's probably a county-wide issue. I only track our area though. It wasn't unexpected given the budget problems, but it's disheartening nonetheless. SWACA submitted a priority transportation project to the city of Boise this year, hoping that they would include them on their list to ACHD. We asked for an asphalt path on the north side of Victory Road between Cloverdale and 5 Mile so that people would not have to travel in the road or gravel shoulder to walk or bike to the library. A whole sidewalk seemed like it would be too much to ask for, but we were hoping that an asphalt path on a road that last I checked wasn't scheduled to be widened for almost 10 years would be doable. The city of Boise came through and put our path on their list, which wasn't a guarantee, but it was a good start. Then I heard from Commissioner Goldthorpe that community programs was being cut in the budget and that basically only safe routes to schools would be funded. This summer, I have seen more people walking and biking the arterials than ever, and with more houses being built, I imagine this is only going to continue. There is a group of elementary to middle school age children, about 5 or 6 of them, who I have seen ride their bikes up and down Cloverdale almost every day. Cars driving by at 40 to 50 miles an hour. I don't know where they are going. I don't know if they have permission from their parents to be out there. Many times they have no choice but to travel the arterials since there are so few collectors or connected neighborhood streets. If they are like my son, their parents tell them to go through the neighborhoods and then they disobey and ride their bikes, their skateboards down Victory Road at peak hour anyway because it's a shorter route. Children think they're invincible. They don't think through consequences of their actions, and often they are in their own world, not paying attention to everything around them, which is a bad combination when they are riding the white lines of Southwest Boise. Almost everyone I talk to out there, when a new development application comes along, complains about traffic and travel time. I've complained about traffic and travel time to you. Almost everybody wants the roads widened, but there are a lot of people out there who would be fine with smaller projects that can spread the improvements around our area rather than 1 to 2 larger projects every year. Is it possible to build for 3 but plan for 5? I know that build for 5 but plan for 7 seem to be okay for Linder between State and Chinden. 3 lanes, no curb or gutters, borrow pits for the water collection, sidewalks separated from the road by the borrow pit. Less expensive to build, less expensive to maintain, and it enhances the rural characteristics of the Southwest, which is a blueprint Boise term that is overlooked and disregarded most of the time. Be able to improve more roads in a quicker timeline, and most importantly, get sidewalks installed so we can say we have done everything we can to ensure that another child is not killed because of a lack of basic infrastructure. That wasn't my idea. It came from Elaine Clegg over a year ago. I put it out on the SWACA Facebook page several times, and I bring it up at our meetings regularly, and I have not heard from anyone that says it's a bad idea. One woman even said she would take asphalt paths over sidewalks if it meant that they could go in sooner. Even just keeping the 2 roads and putting asphalt paths would be a welcome change for our area. I would also say that any project that is a widening or revamp of a road or intersection that already has basic infrastructure, such as sidewalks and crossing signals, needs to be delayed until other arterials and streets come up to at least that basic level of safety. Director Wong once told me in an email that the language of the recommendation for approval of an application has been the same language for 20 years. Change it. Standards change. ACHD has changed engineering principles and upgraded technology in that 20 years. So change the recommendation to the land use agencies to reflect the whole picture and the current times. How would you or I explain to the parents of that little boy why Cole and Victory intersection is being widened again, or why Linder is likely to get a 7-lane bridges so people can avoid driving Eagle Road, even before the arterial where their son died gets a sidewalk? There is no acceptable answer to that, because the most basic function of society is to protect the life of children. And out in Southwest Boise and other areas of town, that's not being done to the best of our ability. As I said before, I am not laying blame at ACHD's door. This is a problem that has been created by many different things. But for ACHD, I would like you to take a hard, critical look at the 5-year work plan and the CIP, make changes to your recommendations to the land use agencies when new developments come along. Maybe settle for a bit less for now in terms of project size, and do everything in your power to get basic safety infrastructure on all the arterials as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions or comments?
I have a comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marisa.
And I would invite you to come back for our budget hearing and maybe submit those comments in writing ahead of time, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who would like to address the commission today? Seeing no volunteers, meeting is adjourned.